Hey everyone, Christina Del Rey. I'm here to talk to you about what's going on in the world energetically. And I spoke about this during my forecast. So if you're interested in what's going on for your sign, make sure you look at my weekly forecast for this week. But I'm here to talk about something a little more relevant to everybody. One thing that I've noticed is that this Saturn square Uranus energy that we just felt yesterday for the first time, the first of 3 meetings that these planets will have. And this is following a bigger story that started last year when Pluto and Saturn came together and all of our structures were annihilated, because that's what Pluto does, he annihilates. So with our structures being annihilated, now we have to rebuild them, correct? So 2021 is a rebuilding year. So you might find yourself rebuilding your life after what happened, whatever your situation, calls for. And everybody is unique, even though, you might be part of an astrological sign, and there might be, a story that, has the same themes. It's going to be on an individual level for each person, because every soul has individual lessons to learn. So before I get too much into Saturn and Uranus, I do want to discuss that I've seen a lot of people having a spiritual awakening during this Saturn-Uranus square. And people are noticing that something else is out there. People who, don't usually even think about that sort of thing. And I think that this is really, where we're supposed to be right now. So I kind of thought I would take it back to, because some people have limited understanding of spiritual awakening. So for me, this is the most important spiritual awakening, was that the ego versus the true self. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you kind of heard it before, I'm going to explain. So I looked up ego in the dictionary, and it says a person's sense of self-esteem and self-importance. So if you think about it, I guess the ego is really how you feel about yourself, right? And the ego is really more of a 5 sensory structure. So ego is the I. Okay, so every time you say I, you're referring to the ego. So if you're saying, I stand for this belief, or I like this, I like that. So you are talking about the ego, because the ego thinks that it is all there is. So your thoughts become who you are. So, I belong to this group, so I am that group. Or I am a teacher, so now that's just who I am. I'm a teacher, and that's it. And I have these certain spiritual beliefs, and those thoughts become your identity. So your identity is tied to your mind and what you're thinking. I just discussed this in length in the church service, Roots Revival. It's on my channel. But this is just a little refresher that, most people, if somebody challenges your beliefs, you get offended, right? Because you are those beliefs. So how dare they challenge your beliefs, because, that's who I am. But the real self, the true self, is here to tell you that's not who you are. The ego, the mind, the body, those are not who you are. Here are some signs that you are ego-based, or you have been living from the ego. And One of those is that you are making choices based on fear and anxiety, and you're in constant search of security. You look outside yourself to find your worth or to feel good. So maybe, you ask people incessantly, well, what do you think of this? Or maybe you're always thinking, what does she think of me? You care about what other people think of you, to like a point of obsession almost. You're constantly moody depending on the day. Something could upset your whole day, and one thing happens and it just upsets your entire day. You label and categorize others. You constantly compare yourself to others. You complain a lot. You're confused when it comes to making choices. You react very dramatically when something happens. You totally freak out, lose control. You feel something is missing, and things, you try to fill that void with things, but then like after a while it's not enough. You might escape a lot, and that could be drugs and alcohol, but also too, like, if the ego is searching for something, and maybe it's shopping, and you love to go shopping, but then like when you get home and you're enjoying your stuff, and then you're like, well, now I need another hit of shopping, because it doesn't really have a whole lot of meaning behind it. And it could be anything. It could be food, it could be anything, but you're trying to fill a void that really isn't fillable, because the ego always wants more. That's what the ego does. And the ego will play tricks on you. It'll make you think that you are not enough and that you are your mind. And we can't get rid of an ego. Like, the ego is just a part of who we are. It's part of the physical. It's part of the five senses. If somebody goes to Harvard, well, they're looked up to more than somebody who went to the local university and got the same degree. And that's great, I'm sure that, everybody who works to their potential, that is a wonderful thing. But that's where we have to get into the true self, because the ego only wants external power. Everything's external. And really, if you think about it, like, our whole world is built on external power, right? Because, we believe what we can see. And we built our world on what we can see. So it only makes sense that it's outside of us. So we think that we lack and that we have to go outside of ourselves and fill ourselves to become worthy. But here's the secret that nobody tells you, that, once you become conscious and in the present moment, you realize that there's only the present moment. And when you become conscious and you don't think, you actually stop thought, you can realize that you are not your thoughts. You are actually a spirit or a soul living inside of a human body. Well, why would you pick Earth? Why would you want to be here? Well, your soul decided it needs some lessons to learn on the Earth. So it came down. And you didn't even know your soul for, you didn't even know what was going on 9 months in the womb, right? You just kind of trusted. And then you came out into this world, and people kind of, told you lacked. I mean, maybe they didn't tell you to your face, or maybe they did. But once you're born, you're kind of searching for something, something that is already inside of you. And I like to think of it as, I like to think of source energy, or God, or spirit, whatever you want to call it, as the white light in the sky, and that everybody is just a beam of white light. So you are part of that. You're a small, tiny part of the rest of the world. And how do you know that? How can you feel that? Well, when you go into the present moment, you can feel your life energy inside your body. Do you direct your attention not to the mind, because the mind is only one thing. You have a hand, you have a foot, you also have a mind, right? They all serve their purpose. But you don't say, oh, I'm my hand, this is me. No, you don't say that, because just like you're not your mind, you're not every thought that you have. The mind is there to serve a purpose, just like your hand is. So this is the difference between becoming conscious and unconscious. So if you are completely ego-based, you are unconscious. You're just running around making decisions based on how you can get power, on a daily basis. And, you might make some good choices. You might be a good person living in the ego, but you are unaware of how whole you are with the divine. So if you are able to transcend thoughts and allow the universe in, it's almost like a download. It's like you let it in, and all of a sudden you're whole. So when you're making decisions, you should really do it consciously. And the way to do that is to, be responsible, say, okay, so this decision, kind of get some detachment on it. How can I be responsible when I make this choice? And who am I going to hurt? Am I hurting myself? Am I hurting others? And most of the time when you make a decision to hurt others, you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting, really, because all the souls are connected, you are hurting everybody. And the person that went to Harvard as opposed to the person that went to the local university are no different on a soul level. They might be different on an egoic level, on a physical level, because they have more accomplishments, and but you take away the big car that you have, or the Coach bag that you have, and what's left is your soul. And that's what matters. That's what really matters. So the important thing is to connect the ego and the soul, and to move around life together with them in action. Because like I said, you can't get rid of your ego, but you can have a healthier ego. And once you are conscious and you know that your ego is taught, okay, that's ego, that behavior is ego, and you remind yourself, then you're able to look at the shadow parts of you and do some of the shadow work, some of the parts that you don't like about yourself, like, oh yeah, I just really judged that person. That probably came from the ego, and I have to work on that, like that kind of thing. But the minute that you understand that it was conscious, that you have consciousness, and you don't just talk badly about people and then move on with your life. The moment you notice it, then you start to come out of the ego, and that is a healthier ego. And then you begin to work on those shadow pieces and try to align more with your soul. But the big thing is the awakening, and I'm seeing people awaken to this, and it's very exciting. Once you are conscious, you can start living life from intuition, and I'm writing a class on that for Ivy at askivy.com. And maybe you'll be able to get more of that, but I just kind of wanted to give a brief introduction, because I think this is so important right now for where we're at as a society. So another really important thing of being conscious is that you have a life purpose. Your soul is here for a purpose. It came here to learn certain lessons. If you don't know what those are, you need to find that out immediately, and you need to start pursuing that, start living from that place, because otherwise you're just wandering around and not aligning with anything, and just not living a purposeful life. So how can you find your life purpose? Well, one way is astrology. One way is to go within, to sit in that space, to be in the present moment. Like I said, I'm going to talk more about that in the class I'm writing, but just to tell you, if you don't know your life purpose, you need to make that your first, your first place that you need to look and and come from that. So how does this all fit into Saturn Uranus? Well, coronavirus, right, came with Pluto Saturn. And Pluto Saturn was the breakdown of structures. Now, we didn't know how that was going to play out, but how better to stop the world than to have a pandemic, right? Because now everything's stopped. You can no longer follow the daily routines that you have. Saturn is all about the daily routine or the work that you do. But Saturn also is control, okay? And then we have Uranus. And Uranus is being free, right? It's the unknown. It's chaos and surprise. And then we have a square between these two. So the square, and I heard an astrologer, I think it was Empowering Astrology, I don't remember her name, but she said squares are like steps. And that really resonated with me because in order to reach a goal, we have to climb the steps, right? Most things in life don't just come to us. We have to work for them, or at least the meaningful things, the things that we derive meaning from, and that we're proud of, that we're most proud of, and that's on an egoic level. But but we have to climb those steps, right? We have to strive to reach the goal. The goal, though, is Uranus, because Uranus is spirit. It's that intuition that comes in. Have you ever just been creating something and you're you're like in your groove or like in your moment, like you're kind of like, oh, I'm in the flow, and you don't want to stop because the flow is there. Like that's Uranus, and we need to. Uranus is stronger than Saturn, so Uranus is saying, you need to be free. And Saturn is saying, well, no, I need control. I need to control my life. And we can sometimes over Saturn. If you're trying to control every aspect of your life, you're living in the ego. You're not living in the true self, which is authentic power within you. Because that means if you're trying to control everything, that means you don't trust. You don't trust the universe. You don't trust anything. And you think you need to control it, and that is ego, and that's just too much. It's not that we don't have to control some things, because we do. We are still living in a physical world, but if you are over controlling, that's over Saturning. And that's what we as a society, we're doing. We're over controlling, and we think we have all this control. So it starts to get out of hand. I have a history teacher I used to work with, and I'm sure he didn't make up the quote, but he would say, all the time, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is really true. So the world, planets, whatever, has to rebalance itself. And Saturn and Uranus are trying to rebalance itself, saying, guess what? You don't really have the control that you think you have, and you're not coming from the right place. So now we have to leap. So one area of your life is asking you to leap. It's asking you to trust. It's asking you to become free. And if you go to my astrology forecast for this week, I talk about which area of life this is for you. But if you know your real self, you know your true self, and you come from a place of trusting God, being aligned with the present moment, the present, and that the universe knows what is best for you, it's going to be a lot less stressful than trying to control it all yourself, because it's like you're not big enough to control so much. You can't carry that. You can't carry all of that. And if you do, you will go crazy. You'll just go crazy, insane. You'll be on all these medications, and I'm not against medication at all. But, if you're constantly increasing medications, or these aren't working, that isn't working, then that means something in your overall structure isn't working. So you need to rethink that. And when you come from a place of trust and surrender, because you can't control it. So there's certain things you can't control. You just have to give them to the source, or to God, or to spirit, or to whomever you believe in. And once you do that, once you hand over that control, you feel so much better. And that is what Uranus is asking us to do. It's asking us not to be overly in control. So, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you want to hear more. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to teach an entire class on this. It's a fascinating topic, and I believe that a lot of people, some of you are awake, and that's why you're on my channel, but other people have not awoken yet, and I would love to be a person who gives them that information that has come to me from the great spiritual teachers. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for more videos.